Intimations of Immortality by William Wordsworth, presented by Miss Litzoff. So a little background on the poem. An ode, first of all, is an elaborate lyric verse which deals seriously with a dignified theme. In this case, the theme is death. Wordsworth is trying to understand death and come to terms with his own mortality. So he was quoted as saying, "Nothing was more difficult for me in childhood than to admit the notion of death as a state applicable to my own being." So, in other words, he's just talking about even as a child, he understood that he would one day die. And we can see this in other poems of his. So, for example, a simple child that lightly draws its breath and feels its life in every limb, what should it know of death? And that comes from We Are Seven. So, in this sample verse from this poem, and children shouldn't know anything of death. I mean, that is part of being a child, is just living in the moment and not thinking about the fact that one day we're going to die. But for him, he's letting us know that this is something that he has always understood, even as a young child. Okay, so ode, an intimation on immortality. And oh, ye fountains, meadows, hills, and groves, forebode not any severing of our loves. Yet in my heart of hearts I feel you might. I only have relinquished one delight, to live beneath you, your more habitual sway. I love the brooks which down their channels fret, even more than when I tripped lightly as they. The innocent brightness of a new-born day is lovely yet. The clouds that gather round the setting sun do take a sober coloring from an eye that hath kept watch o'er man's mortality. Another race hath been, and other palms are won. Thanks to the human heart by which we live, thanks to its tenderness, its joys and fears. To me, the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. Okay, so even though this is a fairly short poem, there's a lot going on. So I'm just going to hit on some of the highlights. So overall, this is an apostrophe to nature. And oh ye fountains, meadows, hills, and groves. So it's nature is not present, but that is who he is actually speaking to, which is what an apostrophe is. So when he refers to you throughout the poem, that is an apostrophe. So obviously, being a romantic poem, there's plenty of emotion and feelings, love, and then we also have he's comparing, the brooks, and when he was young, I tripped lightly as they, the innocent brightness of a newborn day. So this is him reflecting as a child how he interacted with nature. Um, and then it's also letting us know that no matter how old the speaker is, when it's in nature, every day is a newborn day. So the morning is eternal. But then you have a shift, right? We have this semicolon here, and then we know in the very next stanza, now he's talking about a setting sun. So this is representing mortality, the nearing the end of life. And he compares it, that kept watch over man's mortality. So we have the morning in the first stanza, and then in the second stanza, we have the end of day, which then represents man's mortality. So here we're talking about thanks to the human heart by which we live. So this again, grabbing onto romanticism, this is talking about the emotion, okay? So thanks to the fact that I can feel, right, the heart by which we live, its tenderness, its joys, its fears. To me, the meanest flower that blows can give thoughts. And so here he's giving personification to the flower, that when we go into nature, we can lose ourselves and thoughts that do often lie too deep for tears. So even though we're, reaching the setting of our own life by reflecting back on nature and the feelings that it allows us to feel, it's difficult to feel sad about that. We can get up every morning and look at the rising sun and enjoy the fountains, the meadows, the hill, the groves, the brook, um, and um, and just feel those emotions and be alive. So throughout the entire poem, the bright diction and images, even though, we are talking about a setting sun and mortality, overall, the bright diction and the images, um, lively images, give the poem a very celebratory tone. We're celebrating life, we're celebrating nature, even as we muse on our own mortality. So here, the speaker of the poem is Wordsworth, and the situation is the speaker is nearing the end of his life and is trying to find the answers to one of life's biggest questions. How do we find peace with our own mortality? So for me, the theme is by celebrating the eternalness of nature and staying connected with nature throughout all stages of life. Man can find joy even as he nears the end of his life, as the eye that hath kept watch over man's mortality becomes more apparent. Man can still find joy in the meanest flower. So once again, the father of Romanticism, William Wordsworth, is conveying the connection that man, humankind, has with nature and how that can bring us peace.